Well, welcome to race weekend. I'm meteorologist Lindsey and we're keeping you updated with the very latest on the changes for the forecast for race day into Memorial Day, including today, this Saturday. Looks pretty good though. So yesterday we dealt with some pretty gusty winds at times that made it feel even cooler. The wind is going to be less of an issue for today. So we are looking at an overall more pleasant start to your race weekend. There will be some increased clouds this afternoon and temperatures will remain a little below average, but 71 today, mainly dry. We have the potential of some sprinkles as well as more widespread, thicker cloud cover for race day, and that's going to keep, looks like, your temperature down. So we're looking at daytime highs in the mid 60s, and of course, not going to rule out potentially some rain chances. We're going to get to that hour-by-hour forecast in just a bit, but recapping what we can anticipate for your Saturday. Temperatures today going to be a little below average. 71 the forecast high at Indy, 68 in Kokomo, 67 in Muncie. Average high for this time of year is in the mid 70s, around 76 actually. So everybody stays well below that. But we've got this light breeze in place. Again, a little sunshine to get the day started. Some increasing clouds later on today. So overall, not a bad setup. Now, lots going on tonight, I'm sure, especially as we get into the evening hours. And that is as we are all preparing for all of the festivities coming up tomorrow. Perhaps you have family in town. Perhaps you've got parties going on you're headed to. Want you to know that the forecast looks pretty good, staying dry this evening. Sunset tonight, by the way, officially now after 9 p.m., 9:01 as we fall back through the 60s through 10 p.m. will be at 62. Now, as we get into the overnight hours, temperatures will once again drop back into the 40s for some. 45 will be the low temperature up in Kokomo, 47 in Lafayette, but 50 here in the Indy Metro, which is below average. The normal low temperature at this point in the season is 56. But when we compare that to some of the cooler mornings that we've seen for the 500 in history, we are not going to be anywhere close to record numbers. In fact, the coolest morning was back race morning of 1947 when we dropped to 37, but it felt more like freezing with the wind chill that morning. Had a couple mornings where we fell to near 40, 1966, 1924, and then most recently we had a morning low temperature of 42 back in 2021. I'm sure some of you may remember that, kind of an off year as we were coming out of the COVID years. But yes, it will be one of the cooler mornings that we have had, but more importantly, the afternoon temperature is going to stay down into the mid 60s. We'll talk more about how that compares to races in the past, but let's start with the morning, kind of break down your 109th running of the Indianapolis 500. 6 a.m. when those gates open, that's when we'll likely see that 50-degree mark. Then as we get into the mid-morning at 9 o'clock, that's when the cars will head to pit lane. At that point, we'll see a mix of sun and clouds and some increasing clouds at that point. So really not a ton of sunshine. As we get closer to green flag, 12:45, of course, we have all of the traditions and the festivities leading up to the green flag. That all really gets underway right around noon. So noon to about 2:40 or 12:45 is when we're going to be doing the national anthem, of course, back home again in Indiana. All of those festivities and the traditions that we love. This will likely be in the low 60s at that point. 62 degrees is the forecast temperature as we approach the 1 o'clock hour. And then eventually we're looking at a high near 66. And I did put a rain icon on the 4 o'clock hour, but I don't want you to be overly concerned about that. That's just indicating that we could see a few stray showers during the course of the day on Sunday, but they're going to be very light. And I think what it will amount to out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we might see a few raindrops out there. Can't rule that out based on how this forecast is playing out. So even looking at the temperature differential, most of Indiana is in this kind of blue shading. That's where we're going to have those thicker clouds, and that's going to keep the temperature down. It's really hard to warm up the surface whenever clouds are so widespread and so thick. So 66, that's going to be your forecast temperature as we get into our race day. And then comparing that to race days of the past, of course, the coolest one you may remember also is the record for the closest finish on record back in 1992. We only had a high of 58 degrees that day, and I was not there, but I've heard stories that there were even flurries flying around that day. So kind of one that a lot of folks remember. Now, as far as how tomorrow is going to compare to that, these are your top 6 coolest. We hit 65 for a high back in 2003, and I believe this is going to be the coolest race since 2003. We also hit 65 in 2004. We had a daytime high temperature of 66 several times, but also that's what we are forecasting for this year. So if we do only see a high of 66 on race day, that would potentially tie for the 7th coolest race on record. So how does the cool air impact the drivers and the cars? Essentially, whenever we have a cool surface, it takes some time for the tires to warm up and to get that grip that they would need in order to pick up in speeds. So it could be a little bit of a slower race initially until the tires get warmed up. It's going to take a little bit more time for that to happen because the grip is going to be lower. And we would likely potentially see more sliding around because of the lack of grip. So hopefully that won't be a major issue, but it is something that we have seen with cooler races in the past. Now, let's talk rain chances as we get into the overnight hours into Sunday morning. Here's what is really the biggest change from what we've been talking about so far this week. We have a stalled warm front that's down to our southwest, and it looks like it's going to stay at bay to our southwest, and that's what's going to bring the more organized, widespread rainfall opportunity as we get into Sunday. What's going to happen is we've got a lot of moisture that's going to kind of wrap around that system and kind of into the upper levels of our atmosphere over central Indiana. So this particular weather model picking up on some stray shower activity. This is at 6 o'clock, of course, when the gates open. Now, what's going on close to the surface is we've got a lot of dry air. So the dew points are going to be lower. That's going to interact with some of that more moist air that's developing kind of the upper levels of the atmosphere. So that's a good indicator that we're going to keep a lot of clouds around, but also it's going to be a battleground. Where does the moisture content get high enough to overcome the dry pocket of air close to the surface? And that's still yet to be seen. But since we know that battle is going to be taking place in the skies over Indiana, we don't want to rule out the potential that we might see a few of those raindrops that are able to overcome some of that dry air, and that could bring some, at times, raindrops around central Indiana. So this is around noon. So this is right before, of course, the green flag. We'll fast forward a little bit throughout the duration of the race to about 4 p.m. Noticing still, this is not widespread heavy rain by any means, but of course, there is the potential that we could get some very light stray showers. That's through 4 o'clock. We'll advance a little farther through 6 p.m. Still potentially a little bit of some very light rain in the vicinity. And then through about 10 o'clock, we're going to see that rain chance wrap up. And then into our Monday, eventually, we're going to look at some changes. So let's say we do get a little bit of some light rain and we have to dry the track. What's the contingency? Of course, last year when we had that heavy rain event, they basically just postponed everything and then picked it back up after the rain had moved out and the track was dry. If everything gets underway and say we do get a few of these light raindrops or a stray shower, the good news is we still have a lot of dry air close to the surface that'll likely help things to evaporate a little faster. And hopefully that means the track can get dried pretty quick. So on average, it takes 90 minutes to dry the entire oval. The quickest they could do it would be about 77 minutes, and then if it's, of course, a very humid day with cloud cover, it could take up to 3 hours depending on how heavy the rain is. Again, this is going to be very light, just a few raindrops. So potentially we are looking at as quick as perhaps an hour to an hour and a half for that to get dried up and then get the cars back out onto the oval. Now, the average time it would take to run all 200 laps, this is the average length of the 500, anywhere from 3 and 3.5 hours. So if we do end up seeing a cloudy day where it just kind of sprinkles and we've got mist throughout the day, we would need a window of at least an hour and a half to 2 hours of dry time in order to get at least 101 laps in for that race to be called if the rain for some reason would pick up. I don't see that being the case. I don't see that being the issue. I think if anything, you're going to be walking around at the track on Sunday, potentially get a few raindrops on you, and then this quickly moves on. It's going to be that sparse as far as the rain chance goes. So there are contingencies. We do know how long it takes to dry the track, but it should be a pretty quick drying process just given the dry air that we've got around and the fact that this is going to be very light in nature. Unfortunately, we can't rule out rain. That's the downfall. 20% chance of that light shower opportunity for race day, and that's how it stands right now. Then we get into Sunday evening. If you're doing the doubleheader, going to the race, and then the Pacers as they host the Knicks, Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals. We've got a pretty good night ahead. So that's going to be an 8 o'clock tip down at Gainbridge Fieldhouse Sunday evening. We will see mostly cloudy skies, going to be cool, but it does again look mainly dry as temperatures eventually fall back into the mid-50s. For our Memorial Day this year, again, we've been watching this rain chance kind of just stall to our south. This takes us into Monday, where we've got a high back near 72. So a little bit of a warming trend, but we're also going to start to flip the pattern here a bit. As we get into Monday evening, I think most of that rain, by the way, does hold off for any outdoor plans you might have for Memorial Day. Looking at that next better chance for the more organized widespread rain to move in along this low pressure system as we get into Tuesday morning. And then eventually Tuesday afternoon, this rain does become more active and widespread, going to impact us. This is through Tuesday night. So eventually we are looking at some increased rain chances here, but overall does look very limited on race day. I think that's the primary point here. I want to drive home. You definitely are probably going to want to layer up in the morning, and you might just want one of those windbreaker type jackets just to have ready to go throughout race day in case a few of those water droplets do fall. 72 mainly dry for Memorial Day, and then that more widespread rain on Tuesday keeps the temperature down a bit. The pattern overall stays a little unsettled, and while it won't be a washout Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, we are looking at least a chance of a few stray showers all the way through the start of next weekend. But temperatures will become more seasonal with daytime highs back in the mid-70s. That's the latest on your race day and beyond for your forecast for now. We will continue to keep you updated on air, online, WTHR Plus as well with the latest weather updates.